Hi everybody. I thought I would do a few more Gurdjieff little chats and quotes because I've been doing some studying lately. Something that's been on my mind is all the legal things that have been going on in the world and people's rights and freedom of speech being taken and what's right, what's wrong, what's for the best for everyone. And then I started thinking about justice because I wanted justice, which we all want, really. We want justice for things that have been done against us, against others, against the world, against humanity. I know that in the last year, this 2021, I've heard a lot about talks of how do we get justice for what's been done to us all, or how do we get justice for, well, yeah, what's been done to us all. I could rant on, but I'll leave it at that. But so I started looking at the Gurdjieff books and Ouspensky books on justice. What is justice? You know, just ice. We want to have things made right. We want punishments for those that have done wrong. Is punishment the right word? Should we be punishing someone or should we be educating them? Should we be teaching people the difference between right and wrong and trying to explain to them that if we lived in a justified world, everyone would be living much happier? But then I know a lot of people who do wrong things, crimes, robberies, burglaries, I don't know, harsh, horrible crimes against humanity or other people, would have their reasons behind it. And don't think they're sitting there thinking, I'm doing this to spite someone. But deep down, the underlying reason why they do it that they might not be aware of is in spite of someone, because something's been done to them and they've got this need for justice in their way. Some people would talk vigilante kind of justice, when, you know, big supporter of Batman myself, but there are ways of having to be looked at and why crime happens. Why do people do bad things? So going through the old All and Everything and such like, Gurdjieff writes on page 353 of All and Everything, and this is by Ashiata Shirmash, who was one of the prophets that came down from his endlessness in the Beelzebub's tales to bring justice to the world, but also to bring a teaching to help people learn to live in a more just way, a just life. So this is the prayer of Ashiata Shirmash. In the names of the causes of my arising, I should always strive to be just towards every spiritualized origination and toward all the originations of the future spiritualized manifestations of our common creator, almighty, autocrat, endlessness. And that's something we're striving to be, just in everything we're doing. We want to be just in our thoughts, just in our speech. We want to be just when we're working with other people, whether they're in the work or out of the work, whether it's just everyday people that we're meeting. It's how to be just, which all comes down to all these exercises that Gurdjieff gave us to help us remember ourselves and be aware of ourselves when we're doing this kind of thing. And in a way, I suppose we want to be examples, so that if we're being just, other people can see that we're being just, and then they might copy, imitate. Most humans ape everybody else. So by aping us, it might start working in them. And I know it's not just in the Gurdjieff work, there's other types of people that try to be just and true and honest in their being when they're working with other people. So All and Everything, page 908. It often happens that while existing together, destiny for any separate individual in the process of his personal existence turns out for him personally to be absolutely unjust. But for all the others existing together with him, there are attained from this, in the objective sense, an abundance of just fruits. Some people seem to just swim through life and everything goes right for them. Others, we have problems that come up, stop us in our tracks. Is it karma? I don't know. We must remember the laws of karma when we're doing this kind of work. And I do find that Once you get to know yourself and be more awake and go about your everyday lives, karma comes around pretty quickly. It's when we're not awake that karma takes its time and hits us when we least expect it. But those karma lessons are there for us to help us stay on the true and just path. And we have to try and balance our karma back out. And justice is a way of balancing the good and the bad, the yes and the no, and becoming in the center, but seeing what is right in our conscience and consciously. You know, we have that little voice in the back of our heads niggling away when we're doing things wrong. Sometimes justice is mistaken for revenge. And for those Star Wars fans out there, the second movie, which most of us know as Return of the Jedi, was originally called Revenge of the Jedi. And then George Lucas realized that revenge is not quite right. A Jedi doesn't look for revenge. So he had to change the title. A Jedi goes forward to bring forth justice. A good Jedi, be the Jedi you want to be. You know, the Jedi of the light side is making everyone aware of what's right and wrong and try and teach them to follow their conscience, to go forward, using the force in the right way. And the force can be used for good or bad. The force is just an energy flow, or whatever you want to believe in. You know, the work could be used for good or bad, but really we should be using it for good, waking our conscience, which is why a lot of the mystery schools and the occult schools are very secretive in the past, because of it getting into the wrong hands. These ideas could be misused. And I think the reason they've been coming out in the last 100 years is because humanity needed a big shocking wake up, because we are on the brink of going either way. We're either going to descend even further and not let this planet create as it should do, or we can evolve, which is why maybe the mystery schools were opening everything up to those that have ears to hear. And hopefully you've got the ears to hear and the eyes to see, to want to learn and do this kind of work. So All in Everything, page 1117. Where then is that pillar upon which, as it were, our whole megalocosmos rests, and which is called justice? Not once has a single doubt ever crept into me as to the existence of objective justice. And that's what we're working towards, objective justice. For you Kabbalists out there, those that study the Kabbalah, know that one of those trees is all about the tree of, on the tree of life, one of those pillars is all about justice. Justice needs to be righteous. It needs to be fair. But people can misuse it. And as he's saying here, you know, where then is that pillar upon which, as it were, our whole megalocosmos rests, and which is called justice? Are people ignoring that pillar? People want to smash down that pillar because they want their revenge, or they want it to be their way rather than seeing what's really going on and the right way to live. That pillar can never be knocked down, but it is there for those that want to use it. And then in All in Everything, page 300 and page 1119. So a couple of pages on from that last quote. Quite an important chapter, this one. Well, they all are. I'm trying to remember. I think it's chapter 44. So, in the opinion of Beelzebub, man's understanding of justice is for him an accursed mirage. And justice is misused, and it does seem like a mirage, like the whole of the way we live is like a mirage. We all want that veil to be lifted so we can see what's really going on. And that's one of the things of what's happening when we're doing this work. We begin to see the lunatic asylum that we're living in, that Gurdjieff calls this world the lunatic asylum, because we do not live properly. We do not live in a just way. We do not live in a sensible way. And then common sense isn't very common. And we're trying to bring that back. We're trying to live in a sensible, justifiable way. and not in the accursed mirage. So all and everything, a few pages on, the fundamental cause of the whole abnormality of the psyche of the free brain beings arising on this planet was that a very definite notion arose and began to exist. That outside the essence of beings, as it were, there are two diametrically opposite factors, the sources of good and the sources of evil, which are just the instigators for all their good and bad manifestations. This universally disseminated, maleficent idea, the data for which gradually became crystallized in each of them during their formation into preparatory age, already dominates their common psyche at their responsible existence, and becomes on the one hand a tranquilizer and justifier of all their manifestations, and on the other hand, the fundamentally impeding factor for the possibility which arises in certain of them for the self-perfecting of their higher being parts. And that's what we're working towards, the self-perfecting of our higher being parts. So this abnormality was what started, was started by us looking for the difference between good and evil. We were trying to, back in the past, humanity was splitting, well, what was going on up into good and evil. And why were they doing that? Why was there a sudden need for seeing which is good and which is evil, what you're doing? Why do we need justice for actions or things that people thought were wrong? Now, is it because the dark forces were getting in and trying to corrupt humanity? Or was it just humans themselves doing wrong things and people needed to, hurting others or, manipulating others, whatever, something evil was being done that people had to put a name to it as to why people were being like that. Well, whatever it was that caused it, which is all explained in All and Everything, he's saying here was the fundamental cause of the whole abnormality of the psyche of the free brain beings existing. That's us. Our abnormality came about because we decided that there was good and evil. So what does Gurdjieff say there is instead? Well, you have to read the books to find out. But it is something interesting to think about because he's saying, this became a universal, disseminated, maleficent idea, the data for which gradually became crystallized in each of them during their formation into preparatory age, already dominates their common psyche. It dominates us, that we need to believe in good and evil and that we do good and evil actions. But we have a sense of that, don't we? We see things going wrong all the time, or something that we see as evil, but we also see good out there. We see people doing good actions, or good things happen to people. And Gurdjieff would bring this down to the different laws, whether you're caught up in law of accident or law of karma or law of fate. I should do a show on the laws, but that's quite a deep subject. I might have to get someone to come and talk to them about that anyway. But what I wanted to get on to was about how it dominates in our common psyche at their responsible existence and becomes on the one hand a tranquilizer and justifier of all their manifestations. We're always trying to justify why we do things. Even though sometimes we know what we've done was wrong or what we've said was wrong, we will justify it. And we've got to look at why we're trying to justify it and find the true reason as to why we did that thing that was wrong. All responsible like that. And that's what we need to be, more responsible for our actions and our words and our feelings, our emotions, and the way we are with all and everything that goes on in our lives. And you also use it as a tranquilizer. I think that's what many people do. And it's an fundamental impeding factor, this, for the possibility which arises in certain of them for the self-perfecting of their higher being parts. So working on this, thinking about this and looking at it in yourself as to what you believe justice is, what good and evil is, will help you with your development of your higher being self. So I wanted to end with a lovely C.S. Knott quote. Let me get the right book. To be just at the moment of action is 100 times more valuable than to be just afterwards. So it's all about in the moment. If we can make ourselves awake enough, conscious enough, and use our conscience, be aware of what's going on, then good and evil, will it occur or not? Or will we be able to bring justice to that moment and use the right thinking, right thought, right feeling, right actions? And that's what we're trying to go ahead and be. We want to be justified, but in an objective sense. Peace to you all. Until next time, thank you for watching. Adios.